Hello and welcome to this lecture, and in this lecture we are going to talk about one more block in exception handling, and that is called as the finally block. So finally block is essentially a block which contains the code which is going to get executed no matter what. So right now we have two blocks, that is the try block and the except block. So let me just go through these two blocks so as to make your concepts crystal clear. So the try block actually contains the code which you think might generate an exception. So you are going to include that code over here, and the except block actually contains the code which you want to execute if the exception occurs. Now the third block in exception handling is called as a finally block, and that is going to contain the code which will execute no matter what. So even if your code is going to have an exception or it is not going to have an exception and it is going to run perfectly, even then the code which is written inside the finally block is going to get executed. So now let's go ahead and learn how to actually write in the code for the finally block. So right after the except block, you go right here and you simply type in finally, have a colon, hit enter key, and start writing your code for the finally block from here. So let's say we type in print, and let's say we type this is going to let's say execute no matter what. And actually I misspelled this. Okay, so what I've done here is that I've simply printed out a line which says that this is going to execute no matter what. So any code which is written inside the finally block, be it tens or hundreds of lines of code, it is still going to get executed no matter what. So right now we are trying to divide a number by 0, and that is actually going to throw an exception, and let's see how the finally block actually reacts to it. So if we save the code and if you try to run this, as you could see, you actually got a divide by 0 error. That is, the exception was handled by the except block, and also the code which was written in the finally block got executed. So it says that this is going to execute no matter what. Now in order to test it out, let's see if this thing works if there is no exception. So let's say you divide 20 by 5, and if you run the code, as you could see, this time we actually got the result for the code written inside the try block, and also the code which was written inside the finally block got executed. So whenever you are writing some code, it is always a good practice to have a try, except, and finally block. That is, you distribute your code in between these three blocks. So the try block is actually going to contain the code which you think might have an exception, and then the rest of the code you could simply go ahead and have it in the finally block. So this was a short lecture on the finally block. So that's it for this lecture, and I hope you guys understood what is the significance of finally block, what is the syntax to write finally block, and how finally block actually works. So thank you very much for watching this lecture, and I'll see you guys in the next lecture. Thank you.